All right, what's up? Welcome back to episode Ocho of the Splatt Show. Finally back. We've got Sam Fields, as usual, hanging out over in Folsom. And I'm kind of getting tired of him, so I'm looking for a replacement Sam right now. So I'd also like to welcome Samuel Reha.
Hello.
Yes, Sam's joining us. He is an old classmate of ours, well, last year. And he was in the undergrad game design program at Santa Cruz with us. Sam and I, as you maybe remember, we worked on a couple of games. I was on Shackle and Sam was on one called Featherweight. And Samuel here was the lead on a game called Snapshot, a very cool exploratory photo-taking adventure is how I would put it. Yeah, that's very cool. You can check that out. It's on itch, right?
Yeah, it's on itch.io. Look for, I think if you just type in Snapshot, it's still the first result.
There you go.
So yeah, you can check it out there.
See, this Samuel's already a winner. Sam, this might be your last show. Sorry.
I understand.
I'm the new Sam Fields.
All right. Damn. Here we go. Okay, but Samuel's success doesn't stop there. You know, Snapshot wasn't enough, so now he's moved on and he is in the master's program at UC Santa Cruz, their extension campus, working on a game called Dictatorship. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Sam? You will?
Yeah. Sure. So Dictatorship is it's a game about trying to hold on to political power. So it takes the form of like a city builder, kind of like SimCity or Tropico. But the idea is you're sort of the dictator of this third world country in East Asia, and you're sort of like trying to manipulate the population in your country so that you can keep control of the working class, but also keep control of the sort of social elite within your country. Sort of dealing with lots of ideas that are lifted from a book called The Dictator's Handbook, which is all sort of this sort of wonderful, digestible, short, but kind of distressing read about the political theory behind dictatorships. Really exciting. If you want, you can go check us out. We're online at dictatorshipgame.com. You can play a very early build of the game there. Check us out on Facebook, Dictatorship Game. Check us out on Twitter. Yeah, man, I am so close to the project. We're coming up on like the vertical slice milestone that I almost don't even know how to talk about it anymore because I've just been in the lab working on it for 11 hours a day for the last week.
Right,
2
and
weeks.
you're so involved in it. You're like, you don't get what it is by now? Come on, I know it like the back of my hand.
Yeah, it's my baby.
Yeah, no, I think definitely both been there last year with Shackle and Featherweight. So that's super cool though. You're bringing it back around again. I'm really excited to check it out myself, and I am very curious because you say it's like you play as this dictator, right? And there's based on this book of these distressing reads and all this stuff. So someone like me, I can imagine myself approaching this game and just being like, haha, I'm a dictator, like let's mess some shit up, but like is this something where like that's a possibility, or like if I do that, am I going to end up like learning some harsh truths, like even though I'm like trying to fool around, is there like still going to be some greater meaning I'm going to glean from it, or social conscience, things like that?
Yeah, well, the ultimate goal is to take someone who would approach this as like a transgressive play kind of game, like a Grand Theft Auto, where it's like, I'm gonna fuck shit up and have fun, and then have them walk away and be like, oh, I kind of feel bad about what I did, and and I ideally teach a little bit about like what are the actual like mechanisms and motivations that kind of lead in a real world dictator, right? Like even if they try and do good, they often end up doing a lot of bad.
Sure.
So like how do you end up in situations like that?
Right. Okay, that's awesome. So maybe maybe I'll be a prime playtester then if I just shared my malicious intent. You can set me straight.
Yeah.
All right, so we brought Samuel on as a guest today to talk about a game called Kerbal Space Program. I'd imagine most of our audience has probably heard of this game by now. If you haven't, it is a kind of goofy but very I don't want to say very, but tries to be surprisingly accurate space simulator game where you
I would say it's incredibly deep.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know the math on all their stuff, but I'm pretty sure they're probably pretty dead on. I feel like maybe this was secretly a NASA project or something.
They collaborated with NASA at one point.
Okay, so see,
There was a
we go.
NASA expansion pack. It was awesome.
This is exactly why we brought Samuel on. He's so much more knowledgeable than this other damn Sam.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so they collaborated with NASA, so they know a thing or two about space. But they, I think I'm very happy to say that they decided not to just make it like Space Commander Astronaut Joe #9. Some dude in a spacesuit. Like they give you instead, like the name implies, Kerbals, which are these little green alien-looking dudes, and those are your kind of astronauts and partners in crime who you're sending off to space. So it kind of pads the game with a layer of kind of goofiness, while still delivering a lot of informative and interesting rocket and space related fantasies and things like that. I never thought I would be building rockets and launching them off. I mean, I did that in like middle school or something, but that was like a cardboard rocket, right? So
right it's a lot different from that for sure.
Yeah.
So
although that was actually the inspiration. The guy who made this game, or I guess like the lead designer, his inspiration was being a kid and launching bottle rockets.
That's awesome. Bottle rockets too. There you go. Oh man. So, and this is actually great. So we have some footage rolling right now, and this is actually my first minutes with the game. So this will give you a very clear idea of kind of the open-endedness of this game, and how you can just kind of explore and make mistakes. So unfortunately, Sam and Samuel can't see this footage right now as we're recording, but I'm building just one abomination of a rocket right now. So I have my nose cone, and then I have 3 engines attached at an angle around the nose cone. So it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
I think it's going to be worth noting that me and Hayden, me being Sam and Hayden being Hayden, are like, compared to Samuel, like total noobs at this. And so I think that will inform what you're about to hear.
Yes, so we have a definitely 2 different perspectives on this. Some people who are very fresh into the game, as well as kind of a seasoned veteran astronaut master, if you will. So, so as this clip kind of shows, what Samuel wanted to talk about was kind of how to design. Oh man, I'm watching the liftoff right now. Sorry, this is hilarious. How to design games without explicit player goals, and as you can see, like right off the bat, I didn't feel like I needed to like start doing some tutorial or story. I just felt like I had the freedom to dive right in and just make a rocket ship, no matter how much it sucked. I wasn't going to be penalized for that or anything. So that's definitely one of my first takeaways. Samuel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your first experiences with Kerbal and kind of how you approached it?
Sure. So I started playing Kerbal Space Program way back in the early days. It was an early access game, so I think the official release was 2015, but I started playing in summer of 2012.
Oh wow, okay.
And it was a different game back then. You only had the one planet Kerbin and the one moon. Maybe there was 2 moons at that point. But the selection of parts was a lot more limited. It was a lot more approachable.
Because you sounds like that. Like that would be more approachable. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, you only had to worry about one planet, one or 2 moons. I don't remember exactly. And there was probably in total 25 different parts to work with. And it was there was a lot less creature comforty features. I don't know if you guys got deep enough into actually getting into orbit, and there's all these nice UI features nowadays for planning out kind of your future burns. Yeah, all the map views and stuff, and I had kind of a rudimentary map view that would show you just the trajectory you were on.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was starting from the same place you guys were, of oh, I'm going to make a rocket that doesn't have any fuel, or I'll forget the parachutes, or I'll put the engines on upside down. but just kind of, going from there and being like, all right, I want to land on the moon and come back. Like, that's my goal, right?
Okay.
I can see the moon there. I want to freaking get to it.
Yeah.
And just hammering things together for hours and hours and hours until finally I touched down on the moon, and it was like 11:30 at night, and I called my girlfriend because I was so freaking excited. Like, I couldn't contain myself. I was like, I'm on the moon, Phoenix. You don't understand.
There you go, man. That's
awesome.
That's what games are about.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's great, man. And like, was the game at that point, was it like, did you have like an objective telling you to go to the moon, or it sounds like this was more of like a self-proclaimed goal?
Yeah, this was it was what they call sandbox mode nowadays, was the original mode in the game.
So that was the mode. To clarify,
it was the mode.
That was the single mode. And did they have like the tutorials or anything like that?
A little bit, but they were very buggy. And you, I don't know how they work in the game nowadays, actually, but it would be things like, okay, we're gonna start you with an orbiter orbiting the moon. Can you get this orbiter below 20 kilometers? And it's like, yeah, I can get the orbiter below 20 kilometers off the surface, but that doesn't actually teach you much. They were just kind of random scenarios,
like isolated incidents, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting because, I think the way that I first played this was that I went into like career mode or something, because that sounded to me like, oh, that's going to be a good place to start. I had no idea what was going on at all. So then I found those tutorials, and those like started to teach me, but it was just such a front loading of information, like just tons of text and like tons of technical jargon, like just being thrown at you at a really fast pace. That I went all the way through like the one where you do orbit. And so I was like, all right, I'm able to do this by like doing exactly what you tell me to, but I'm not retaining any of this information.
Right.
Yeah. And I wound up going back to career mode because I like looked up a YouTube video and I was like, oh, I can get these contracts at mission control, and I can just start to slowly learn based on like actually taking these like tiny incremental goals. And that was good for me because like you said, there were only 25 parts or whatever amount in that original version of the game. But now if you like jump into free play, like it's just a lot.
Fuel tanks look like engines, like everything.
Yeah, it's like, and you just kind of like, all right, I mean, I guess I'll pick this one, but like you have like really like so many choices and like so little knowledge. Yeah, Hayden, you were gonna say something?
So I started off like you can still see in this video. I'm now onto my second horrible creation here. Just going at it. I don't even think I must not have been in. I think I actually entered career mode, and I like looked at some contracts and stuff and was overwhelmed. So I actually didn't. I like was doing sandbox in career mode, if that makes sense. So I did have a more limited pool, but I think it was limited to the point where, as you know, if you guys could see right now, I'm literally trying to like make the structure of my ship out of these like rectangular girder prism things, which spoilers, it doesn't really work out well. But I'm just like trying to hobble something together with what I have, and so and then I think Sam and I ended up getting on Discord for a couple sessions, and we're just kind of going through tutorials together. And while like having walked away from the tutorials, I have gleaned, like I was able to understand a lot of the basics better. When we got into the more advanced tutorials, I really was finding like I was feeling like in the moment that I was digesting them that it was just going in one ear and out the other, right? Like it was such like a complex concept, and like they would like have you do it step by step, and then like you were done, right? Like it was almost like I had an aerospace class in high school, and we like part of it was like doing flight simulator, and so like flight simulator would kind of have you learn on these topics and stuff, and then you would have to like do a successful flight like using everything that you've learned. And so like this is kind of that weird middle ground where it was like it wasn't like I was executing everything at once. I was executing everything once, step by step, not like all together. And so like when it was over, I was like, man, I don't know how to do that orbit mumbo jumbo again, but like I know that the parachute goes on top of the nose cone. You know, like I'd pulled away like the basics and stuff.
Yeah.
You learned.
Yeah, so I think like there's definitely like the approachability of the tutorials, I think, is something that could be improved on. At least for these more complex concepts. Something that really stood out for me is like I'm very much in both, like if I'm ever trying to explain something or being explained something, like a visual means so much to me. Like that is just, I think, some people are visual learners or whatever, but I felt like sometimes I was just like drowning in these little tiny text windows and like trying to like paint a picture in my head when, like they're trying to describe like orbital patterns and where I am in orbit. I was like, just show me one diagram, like, and a dot that says where I am and stuff. So, or where you want me to be. So I definitely I think that was kind of, I was starting to get a little intimidated by like kind of those bigger concepts. And that's where I chose to backpedal out into sandbox mode, which at that point Sam had informed me of. And so then from sandbox, I kind of applied the knowledge I had of the basics, which was like the nose cone, the parachute, how to pair fuel tanks with engines, and then couplers. And then from there I was able to get like my first successful or really kind of far-reaching launch, I should say, which was pretty cool. And I'm gonna switch over to another video now that's kind of me building like an actual rocket now and making some real progress. So yeah, and I think this was probably the turning point for me where I really was starting to kind of get in a state of flow a little bit, right? Like I had kind of a loop in mind. I had a rocket that was, working, and I had enough knowledge now to like when it failed miserably or when something went wrong, I like was able to make an educated guess at like how to maybe fix that.
Those tweaks.
Yeah, and I think that's, really at its core, even 500-600 hours in, your goals are just expanding, right, Samuel, and you're just, it's kind of maybe a similar process with kind of this launch, rinse, repeat.
It seems very incremental, and then that can bring us to maybe like failing and how that's a part of the game, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's a game that's built around failing. You fail 100 times for every one success.
Which is really funny because, that's not really an option if you, work at NASA or something. You don't just get to fail out in the real field. So it's
fail 100 times. 100 times probably not enough.
Just 100 Jebediahs. Yeah. Jebediah, what are their last names?
Kerman. I think they're all Kerman is the last name.
Yeah. It's just one big astronaut family. Oh man. Yeah, so the video right now is I accidentally decoupled my ship twice in a row, and so there's just 3 giant rocket ship hunks floating next to each other.
Right.
Oh man.
I was trying to do a contract where I needed to like use a decoupler. I had to like splash down and use a decoupler, and then these contracts are just like little tasks that they give you that are like they feel arbitrary, but usually there's some lesson there by like that you learn by trying to do it and failing. And I'm an idiot, so I had my decoupler. I had like my from the top down. I had like my parachute, my nose cone, and then like my engine. And then I was like, oh, okay, this mission is just for me to like use a decoupler. So I'll just like stick it on the bottom.
Decoupler jokes. Let's real quick, for anyone who might not be familiar. I mean, I think the name is a little self-explanatory, but a decoupler essentially just allows you to unhinge a lower part of your ship from an upper part of your ship. So if you have like in the rocket I have on screen right now, I have all these boosters and this huge engine on the bottom. And then once that all runs out of fuel, I decouple that and essentially it just detaches so that I can, keep going and I don't have to lug all that heavy stuff around. I can just let it, fall back down to Earth and destroy an entire city or something. Or
So,
Kerbin, sorry.
Like, I guess I was
There's
half
no Earth
asleep
in
or
this game.
something, but I put my decoupler underneath my engine, and then I, like, launched the rocket, and I saw the decoupler just, like, exploded. Like, and then my rocket took off, and then I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. So that is a good example of kind of failing being hilarious, even though that is like a really, I don't know, I felt really stupid that I had even done that, but I got a good laugh out of it. And then I learned, like don't put stuff underneath the engine unless you want it to like explode.
Classic lesson.
An important lesson.
Yeah, no, I think definitely like the most fun moments were just failing miserably, or just like while I was building this massive rocket right here that was just way out of my pay grade, but it was just me just trying to go for it all. I'm just like choking on my laughter trying to explain to Sam what just happened. And meanwhile, I think at that point you joined me in the sandbox revolution and just built like a wild masterpiece out of pretty much just engines, and got to see how that turned out, right? Like you don't know until you try it, right? So
It was
and then with this rocket here, it's coming up, but like Samuel was mentioning, like he finally made it to the moon at 11:30, right? So what's so cool is like I was just my only goal at this point was to build a like giant rocket, assuming that like I was just trying to get as high as I could. So I was trying to put together all I knew about decouplers and fuel tanks and all that now, and use that to just strong arm my way as far into space as I could. And so I end up doing that, and I'm out there in space, and I think I still have like my blast engine with a good amount of fuel in it, and I see the moon in what looks like not very far away, not too far off in the distance. And so at that point, like I have made it far, and I feel like the joy from that. But you could argue that I was going to start feeling lost again or not sure what to do. But I see the moon, and I'm like reinvigorated with this, like, oh, I'll just go there now. Like, I made it up here. Who's to say I can't go there? And so, very naively, I line my rocket ship up to point straight at the moon, and I'm I gotta be a good ways out still, and I'm like, all right, we'll just start the journey, and I'll just be coasting through space if I give it a little bit of thrust. And so I give it some thrust to send me in the right direction, and I start fast forwarding, and the moon starts moving farther away and out of the way, and I was like, what? I was lined up perfectly with it. And then slowly, after I try this like 3 times, do I have the revelation that the moon is also in orbit and is actually running away from me. It's not just my imagination. So I run out of fuel. I'm lost in space, and so I go, okay, let's go back to square one and try this again, with now in mind the fact that the moon is going to run away from me. And so I tried that a few more times, and I have not made it to the moon successfully, but I believe I'm collecting the data needed to get closer and closer. And maybe one day I can call my girlfriend in excitement too. Yeah. So I mean, that's just the thing though, man, is I guess it kind of sounds like we all have like a relatively similar stories into how we approached, but like it's not like it's in no way linear, right? And like our choices about when to jump to career and into sandbox and stuff are kind of independent of each other, and like our ideas on how to build our first stupid rocket are all different. And I think that's just what's so cool, right? It's like like we were saying, there's no goals, but like you get to and you're Samuel, you were mentioning that the community is really strong for this game, and like I'm sure that's just it's a great story swapping game.
Yeah,
and things like that.
Like there's a subreddit, the Kerbal Space Program, r/Kerbal Space Program, that's really amazing. But yeah, that's a lot of what people post there is like times they screwed up. And that's kind of the community. Like I've never played a game that had a friendlier community. than the Kerbal Space Program, or like a more like actively helpful community, because it was like one time it was like I made it to the moon the first time and I was trying to go back the second time, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and my entire lunar lander ended upside down on the South Pole. Like, I shot for the moon and hit the South Pole instead. And I posted the screenshot there, and I was like, oops, I screwed up. And then I was just inundated with like all these like tips and people being like, oh, just keep trying, buddy, you'll get there.
Yeah.
But that's like, yeah, that's an amazing community, really amazing community.
Yeah, I think this game, like in its very nature. Oh my gosh. Okay, so for the audio listeners, the video of me trying to shoot the moon right now is happening, and I just did my first fast forward, and you just watch the moon just fly out of view to the left. But yeah, I mean, I think like this community like has like a relatively high barrier to entry, right? And it's kind of one of those things where, once you make it over the wall, you're thankful to be there and, want to help anyone else get there, because now that you're there, right, you know like what those highs feel like of actually understanding things. And so I think that just kind of, probably comes with the territory of having one of these like higher,
a game that's really about like learning.
Right. And yeah, it's kind of like the games industry, it's really damn hard to break into, but once you're there, you want to funnel everyone else you can in,
A beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I like, even before, like, just when you mentioned the fact that there was a community for this game, I just instantly knew it was going to be this like very kind, helpful, like community that was probably had like this very cool and nature, and was probably one of the better communities out there. Second to probably like League of Legends, is just a glowing gemstone on what just a community
known the world over
for how kind they are.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna have to keep plugging and at least make my landing to the moon. I think that's got to happen at some point, and we'll see. Maybe I'll get there and I'll see some other planet off in the distance, or find some new goal to strive for. Sam or Samuel, any last thoughts on Kerbal for you? Anything else that jumps to mind? Must be said to the masses.
It's interesting because I mean, Kerbal Space Program is like one of my favorite games of all time. But I think being having been around from the beginning, this is like one of two early access games that I got in almost at the ground floor, and I think it gives you a kind of a different perspective on it than someone who comes to it now. Mm-hmm. And certainly. It's kind of interesting because then it's like, games are often a shared experience, but then I can't really share my experience of Kerbal Space Program because if you hadn't come in 5 years ago to start playing, you can't get that same experience.
Right. Okay, I have a question for you.
Sure.
And it's going to seem a little odd, but so if you were to come into this game again, or let's say I've never played before, do you have any, like, is there anything you would have done differently? And again, this is a really tough question for you because when you started the game was so different. But like for me, like the small scale example is like, right, I think like you still want people to set their own goals and everything, but like I think I would have there was a point where I was really struggling with this game, and like not necessarily in a fun way, where I was kind of in the middle. And I think if I had just played like up to intermediate tutorials and then like gone to sandbox or something, like I would have had a better basis to like, or an understanding of the game, and like been able to experiment more from that point rather than me just like snapping a bunch of metal girders together. Like is there I don't know, is there any like commonplace knowledge like that or anything? I mean, your answer could definitely be no, or I'm too veteran for this kind of question.
Too veteran for that kind of question. I think the thing about the game in its early state, when it didn't really have any tutorials built into it, I mean, it had like the very rudimentary and kind of bad ones, was it forced you to go to the community, right? Mm-hmm. It forced you to go find the forums, to go find the YouTube videos of like Scott Manley on YouTube is still on YouTube, and does just like the best Kerbal Space Program videos. But you had to go to the community, right? And that had a really kind of profound effect on just how you approached the game, because suddenly it's not just the game, it's the game that you and 5,000 other people on the internet are all playing and learning together, and sharing your successes and failures. And I think now that can still be the experience of the game, right? Like you can still go to the forums and you still find the YouTube videos and just ignore the parts of, like, when Kerbal Space Program tries to teach you about Kerbal Space Program, that's when the whole thing breaks down. But when you say, oh, I don't know how this works, and you end up on like a Wikipedia hole of like reading about like how actual orbital mechanics works and how to compute delta V, and it's like, that's when the game for me really is just the best.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's...
I have no idea if that answers your question.
No, it totally does. I think I was definitely... It's very easy to try and treat this like a traditional game. We'll put some quotes around traditional, but right, like a more self-contained experience, right? Something where you can kind of depend on the game and the game alone to kind of teach you everything you need to know, which really is mostly, like, in a lot of games, like the higher echelon is going to require like a community, like solving things, like Super Smash Brothers Melee, for example. Like there's all sorts of stuff in that game that like either wasn't supposed to be in that game or you weren't supposed to find out about. Like you can read the strategy guide 1,000,000 times and it won't tell you half of the technical crap that's in that game. And so that's like an example of like, I mean, now there's like all these online, like there's communities, right?
And it's certainly not in the game itself.
Yeah, totally. Like it's going to teach you like the basics, and that what makes that such a peculiar example is like that game wasn't even intending to be complex, right? Like so, but yeah, I mean, it's totally like if there was no community to like spread the knowledge, like there's a website called Smash Lounge that I think is a lot about just kind of getting you familiar with all that stuff. If it weren't for that, it's really just kind of a word of mouth thing or whatever. But there's just people who are dedicated, and just like with KSP, like, yeah. So I think that's super awesome. And I to that point, I think that like Sam was saying at one point that he was struggling with the campaign stuff, so he found a YouTube video on like how to actually start tackling it, and probably picked up some other insight along the way there.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's Kerbal Space Program. If you want to check it out, it's all over the place now. It used to, Samuel just told us that it used to only be available on their website, Squad's website. But now they're pretty much on every digital distribution platform, Steam, GOG, all the big guys. So yeah, you can check it out. It's $40, I think is the list price right now.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, and we caught it on sale a little while ago for like a little less. So you can also, watch out for it in that way too. Put it on your wish list. All right. Well, now that that's all said and done, I wanted to ask you guys both a little bit about this console that came out recently called the Nintendo Switch. So as we all know, that released earlier this month, and I wanted to kind of know what you guys thought before release, and maybe what you think now that it has released, about any of the feedback coming out or anything. It's put out 1.5 million units worldwide so far, which is pretty substantial. Enough so that they are doubling their planned production starting in April because of the consumption, the people buying the Switch.
Right.
So yeah, just Switch thoughts. Throw them at me.
Nice to see a Nintendo console selling units again.
Yeah,
it's been a while. Well, I guess the 3DS sold really well, but goddamn was the I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yes, you are.
Goddamn.
Fucking go right ahead.
Shit. The Wii U was an amazing console and no one bought one. They put out like 5 games for it. It's been a hard time to be a Nintendo fan.
Yeah. All right. So real quick. Sam, you have to have heard this from me because I sung this from the rooftops 1,000,000 times. Every time we talked about it, Sam, I was like, you know what? Here's the problem. If Nintendo wants to make money again, they need to do 2 things. they need to not call their next console the Wii something.
Yeah.
Number
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
And number two, they need to ship it at release with a Zelda game. Those two
Yeah.
things, and they will already be on the right track again. Boom.
Did it.
Boom. They
They
could.
did it.
I
They
should
did
be.
Called it.
I should be the Nintendo marketing represent. I should be the president. Shit. Why not?
You should be the president of the United States.
I could just be the
Yeah.
president of both. You know.
Yeah,
I would have no
It's not
corporate
impossible.
interests. Oh man. But you know.
Okay.
So here we go. Right.
Um,
There was so much confusion around the Wii U. Like even
Right.
me, someone who's so like plugged in and following of the game industry, like when I first heard about it, I wasn't sure whether or not it was a new console or if it was some 3DS new XL Lite, you know,
yeah, right.
bullshit.
And I got a Wii U finally at like the end of 2015, I think. So I was very late to that, but then I would like tell people like, "Oh yeah, I got the Wii U," and they would be like, "Yeah, what is that? Like, what is that? What's?" I know the
Right.
Wii, but not. Yeah, and I'd have to be like, "No, it's like a totally different thing. It's like not the Wii at all."
Yeah. It's
Which is
hard
like-
to believe.
This was like 3 years after the thing has been released, or like 4 years, and yeah, I mean, people just didn't know what it was.
Yeah, like I mean, like a country or a country, yeah, a company that built like its branding on the mobile lineup around like, okay, you're gonna have the DS and then the DS Lite and then the DSi, and we're just gonna keep adding suffixes to these
Right.
hardware,
Yeah,
these
but-
intergenerational hardware refreshes. Didn't think it'd be a problem to take the name of the old console and put a suffix on it and have people think it would be a new console and not just a hardware refresh.
And they already did the DSi.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
And-
how are you
right,
not
right.
supposed to just make that assumption?
And then, well, even then though, like then I question like the 3DS has a very similar name to the DS.
Yeah.
Do you think there's confusion there, or is that like really obvious to like the average person?
I don't think it's as I think there is confusion. I would say maybe we're
I
mostly
think
past
there
it
is
now.
too.
But
But then like
Yeah.
how does that explain like the success of the 3DS? Like Pokemon games or like
well, I would say
I think
definitely, yeah. I think they've been delivering titles to that platform a lot better than they have the Wii U. I think they've also just kind of.
I think I would agree.
I think they just kind of shifted support onto that. But also, I think maybe the marketing on the 3DS was better too.
I think Nintendo has always had a lot of momentum behind their mobile platforms in terms of like, I mean, the DS was like a wild success, obviously, and they've always had like a ton of third-party support on those platforms, whereas like usually their like in the living room hardware is so different from the other like competitors that I guess they don't have as much third-party support because of like
Yeah.
the overhead that involves, but they've always been like, you know, at the forefront of everything mobile. So maybe it's just that momentum and that like third-party support that's there.
I think
Yeah.
I think too maybe part of it is like when you try to explain someone, if someone asks you how is the 3DS different from the DS, you can say, well, it has 3D, right? Like it's the DS with 3D new games, right? And then you
Yeah.
try and explain the like if someone asks, oh well, how is the Wii U different than the Wii? And you're like, okay, well, like you have like this big controller with a screen on it, but like you can only have one of those, and then like everyone else uses Wii controllers, and then like you can like, you know, like it gets a little muddier, right? And I think like people understanding
weird.
the idea of 3D and the fact that probably meant new games, I think probably helped. And you know that I guess it's a prefix too, right? They put the 3 on the front instead of at the end, so maybe that's a big distinguisher as well that we're not factoring. Sorry, go ahead, Samuel.
3DS is definitely
But,
the most clever product name, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, you got to give.
Combining
I
3D
do like
DS
it.
was already like an abbreviation of dual screen, and then they're just putting 3 on the front to make it 3DS. It's kind of stupid, but
It's got,
always
it's
really
got a
liked
good
it.
ring to it. Yeah, I dig it for sure.
But to circle back to the Switch, you know, seems like it's just something. It just seems like what the Wii U probably should have been, as far as like with the Wii U, they seem to go kind of halfway with this like hybrid console. Like, oh, you can play on the TV, or you can play on the controller screen, but you have to like stay within range of the console. And then with the Switch, with them doing away with that, it just seems like something that people would want to buy, whereas the Wii U is not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Like, now that it's something where you can take this, like you can play it on your TV when you're at home, then you can take it on the bus and you can keep playing Zelda, and it's not handheld Zelda. It's like full-blown AAA Zelda.
Console ass Zelda.
That's something that makes sense why that would be appealing to like anyone. And you get it all in one machine.
Definitely.
And I mean, personally, I was like, oh, I'm gonna hold off on buying this just because, like, you know, I mainly want to play that new Zelda, and I almost feel guilty because I have a Wii U, and the only like game I play on it ever is Mario Maker. So I'm like, you know, I need to use this Wii U, so I'll just pick up Zelda for the Wii U, and I'll hold off on getting the Switch. But it's definitely like I can see with them like mass appeal that it has.
So, Sam, you don't own a Switch. Samuel, do you own a Switch?
I do not, though the Game Lab at the UCSC extension got a Switch in, and it has been absolutely impossible to get any time with it.
I can only
Someone's
imagine.
always on it.
Yeah,
I've picked it up and held it, and that's all I'd done.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, which, I mean, even that's fun, because it's like a really cute, like some people at work have them, and they like bring them in, and it's like really cute, and it's, I don't know, it's just a cool piece of hardware.
It's smaller than I thought it was going to be, in like mostly a good way.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, like the portability of the console is a great thing, but then like you get to those controllers, man, those tiny Joy-Cons, which I absolutely love.
They offer the like Pro controller or whatever, so that's just a more like traditional controller. You can just use that when you're
right. But like now, like
in your house,
the formula is complicated, right? Like if I want to go on the bus and take it, like either I play with these small controllers or like also bring this Pro controller that I also have somewhere. But yeah, I mean,
I don't think I would go as far as to bring the Pro controller on the bus, but
right,
at least you can have that like comfort in your house.
And I love the idea, like their teaser video that they put out a few months back. I just loved the simple concept of like you holding your one Switch means that you have access to 2-player local like multiplayer.
Right, yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's excellent.
One thing that it like kind of reminded me of is I really enjoyed Bomberman on the DS, and it was one of the earlier DS titles, and they had this thing called download play, right? And normally download play was like if you both had the game, you could do download play, and like something special would happen or something. But Bomberman was so early, I think they were just trying to flex download play. So like if I had the game, anyone around me could just download play it, and like we could just play multiplayer Bomberman.
That's beautiful. That's like the socialism of gaming, dude. It's
yeah,
like, share the wealth.
Yeah,
share it.
GOG style.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Down with these bourgeoisie. Gotta pay for each copy in a multiplayer game.
Come on, if one dude buys Call of Duty, shouldn't we all have it?
Yeah. Thank you. You know, something sprang to mind that I kind of want to circle back to because I just thought it was really funny.
We're all about circling back, dude. Just keep it going.
How like we said that, or I said this earlier, like the Switch is what the Wii U should have been, and the Wii U kind of went halfway with this like hybrid thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to talk about our good friend Jake, who had a Wii U, and he would just carry it around in his backpack and like plug it in like anywhere, like at school, in the library, or like whatever. And then he would just like play on the gamepad, and he would just be playing Zelda. And I think, I think he's gonna get a Switch.
Yeah,
Jake is my hero.
He was the dude.
Yeah.
He saw the future. He said, "I'll put in the extra work. I'll slug this console around." but you give me the screen and the controller right here. Like, I get it.
That's he's like, that's what it, he was making it into the Switch. Now he can just finally be free. I think that's beautiful.
He's no longer shackled by the oppressive ways of the Wii U.
By like power outlets. Like, he at least had to find a power outlet,
Yeah.
Now he doesn't even have to do that.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's very cool.
I'm happy for Jake.
Yeah, I actually flip-flopped. I saw the teaser trailer for the Wii U, and I was like, I think I'm gonna pre-order one of these. We didn't know
the Switch.
The Switch. Sorry. I was like, I think I'm gonna pre-order one of these. I like the multiplayer idea. I like like you can get more mileage at it because you can just take it places. It's like, oh, like I'm going home for the holidays. Like, hell, my brother and I can play a game of Mario Kart, and like I don't have to think twice. I just like throw this thing in my backpack, right? And so like I was like, all right, yeah, I can get some mileage out of it either way. But then I saw like the press conference, and I like kind of walked away. I was like, I'll wait. Once I saw that, like the 300 without any games.
I mean, yeah, ultimately it still all comes down to like the games, and right now it seems like Zelda.
And that's the thing, man, is I'm being eaten alive right now. I don't own a Wii U and I don't own a Switch, but I just have to go into work and hear everyone talk about Zelda. And
yeah, like, I think I'm gonna run out and buy Zelda today.
That's probably a good call.
So.
But I've been talking with a friend, like, we're like, maybe we should just go he's about to move into the area, and we're like, maybe we should just go halvesies on the Switch, and then we can just play Breath of the Wild finally, and like, just hand the console off or whatever.
We can finally be one of the cool kids. Like, that's all anyone's talking about.
No, but rightfully so, man. It sounds like that game does a lot of stuff that's really cool. And 89% of the people who bought Switches bought it. So, again, to my point, release with a Zelda game. Maybe that's not what you want, Nintendo, but that's what you are.
So maybe to sort of
if you say circle back one more time, you're off the podcast.
Just to sort of like put a cap on this, we're saying like the hardware is really cool. It's pretty much what the Wii U should have been. The games aren't there yet, except Zelda.
Yeah, and I don't. Is there anything between Zelda and Mario?
Nothing with a big name on it.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I think that boxing game is coming out. That weird like spring arm boxing game.
Arms, man. That is an awful game name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, boy. It remains to be seen whether the game is any good.
Yeah, I was watching that press conference, and I was like, hey, this is like kind of neat looking. And then like at the end of the video, it just flashes the title "Arms" on the screen, and I'm like, I already dislike this game now. Like, that just it just rubbed me the wrong way, man. But
totally.
Yeah. So I think that's a fair summary, and we can jump into our last and final segment. This will be Samuel's.
Before we move on, have any of you guys tasted the carts?
Tasted
what?
The carts?
Have you heard about this? The Switch cartridges, they put a bitterant on them so that little kids wouldn't put them in their mouth.
Oh.
Because apparently, like, our generation were totally fine just sucking down DS cartridges, but they're apparently like the most awful bitter flavor. Like if you taste a Switch cartridge, and I've been so curious, but then also frightened to try it for myself.
Right, and you don't just want to like have the professor walk into the game lab and you're just licking all up on one of the Switch cartridges.
We were specifically warned not to lick the Switch cartridges in the library.
But if you're one of those kids
college,
like,
yeah, I'm a college student. Specifically warned not to lick people.
That's how we finally grow up.
Dang, I'm definitely gonna pass that little tidbit of knowledge on to work and just see if I can get anyone to try it and report back to me.
I think if you're one of those people who just drinks a lot of like double and triple IPAs, you just lick it and you're just like, oh, that's nothing.
I'm getting notes of pine and.
It's like, I'm getting notes of grapefruit right here.
I'm totally an IPA douchebag. What if I like it?
Yeah, I know.
I was like, this is like a nice quad.
I was just at a beer festival yesterday.
It's so bitter, and you're like, it's not even bitter.
Yeah, I drink this for breakfast. All right.
Honestly, it's more floral to me.
Yeah.
All right, so let's round this bad boy out. We're gonna jump into the random number generator section. So shadow is the word on screen, but I did not click the button. So we always press the button once. Although I would love to talk shadow. I think could be pretty funny.
Shadow the Hedgehog.
All right, here we go. The word for this podcast is agenda. Wow, that went downhill pretty quick.
Wait,
All right.
there's something to this.
I've got one. What have you got, Samuel?
Okay, what do I got? I mean, like a game about time management. I don't know exactly what it is.
See,
But
yeah,
it's like,
Stardew Valley came to mind, and we already talked about
Oh,
Stardew
yeah.
Valley a couple times ago. So
I was gonna say Animal Crossing
that was the other one that came to mind, and
because that's it. Because exactly like when you said time management, I don't know. When I thought of an agenda, I thought of like a calendar, and then I thought of Animal Crossing because that game has a calendar, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it totally does. It's all built
all
around
about
like the
that.
seasonal
Like,
calendar
yeah.
and holidays and
yeah.
people
Yeah.
moving in and moving out.
What is your guys' favorite Animal Crossing, and why is it
Oh,
the
gee,
original
I
one?
only
Yeah.
played the Japanese N64 release.
What?
Get on my level.
You played the N64 DD Animal Crossing?
I have no idea what the Japanese version actually was. I know the American GameCube version was a port of the Japanese
Right.
version.
There's
But
an
was it a DD game?
N64 game?
To
Yeah.
my knowledge, yeah, I thought it was a DD game. Yeah.
What is a
I don't know if
DD
it-
game?
Disk
Oh, the
drive.
disk drive.
What?
In Japan, they released N64 games on disc at the very end of the life cycle.
All right, this word is awesome now. I'm learning so much crazy stuff.
They added a peripheral for the N64 so you could play like discs, so they could make like games with more content.
That is
basically.
classic Nintendo.
It
Just
is,
like,
right?
oh, whoops, like the 3DS would suck less if we had like, another control stick on it. Like, let's just sell a weird attachment piece.
Right, and I think Animal Crossing like definitely came with that because like it's a game that it's so like packed with content. Like, wait, it was for DD, right? Let me.
Here,
Let's do a little live research.
I'm gonna
Is that-
pull. Yeah, I'm doing some myself. I'm gonna pull up an image of the
wanna
Nintendo
just
64
speak
DD for the fans here. Oh man! So you know what it looks like if you're listening in audio? It looks like a souped up Game Boy player for the GameCube, where you could play your your Game Boy games and whatnot on your GameCube. That is crazy. That is so fun. It's like the size of the console, man, if not bigger. That's so funny. So wait, why not cartridge? Was like were cartridges running out of space or something? Was that the gist?
I think you could put more data on a disc than on a cartridge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So
It was
like,
also it's cheaper to manufacture a disc, so it might have been part of that.
Gotcha.
but actually, I might have misspoke because I don't even know if it was for the DD. But I don't know. Like Samuel, you said you played it, right? Did you play it through like an emulator?
Oh, I totally lied. I have not played the Japanese version of Animal
Oh,
Crossing.
that was just a straight joke. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
Well,
so
we can talk
also
more about the DD because like why not?
it looks like you like put a cartridge in.
Okay.
I think there was you had to slip a cartridge into the slot in the same way like if you had the Game Boy player on the GameCube, you had to put a special disc into the GameCube while you had the Game Boy player active to make it work.
No, but the cartridge is going into the disk drive.
Okay. What? Okay. Here it looks like
Oh,
the
man.
game started being developed for the DD, and then it went to it got delayed a bunch, and then it went to the 64. So hey, I was wrong.
You were wrong.
Okay, I want to see
I
this.
think it was like a floppy disk. It wasn't like a plastic disk.
Oh,
It was like a
okay.
magnetic disc in a case.
Okay.
Like a floppy disk.
Because
And
it
that's so Nintendo.
it was reminding me of this this idea I had as a kid, which was like the annoying thing of always having like your damn older brother leave the discs everywhere, leave the games out and stuff. And so the idea was you had like the game case itself was like this cartridge kind of thing, right? And you plug that into the disk drive and it would spit the disc in. And then when you're done, you plug that same case back in and it would spit the game back out. So you're never actually touching the disc, right? And, just would be this kind of cool way to, keep your disc safe and, your brother can't leave them lying around.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
now we
right.
just have downloadable games, so you don't have to do that anymore. But I thought maybe Nintendo was being really cool just now, and they had my idea. Again, I should be the president of Nintendo. I'd like to reiterate, but we'll see if they jump on that or not.
I think to become the president of Nintendo, you have to defeat Reggie Fils-Aimé in unarmed combat, which, as far as I'm aware, is physically impossible.
Yeah, I've only been training in armed combat recently too, so I need to brush up on that as well. I can beat him in Smash. I know that. Well, not
You have
Smash.
to beat him
4.
in arms for the Switch.
I mean, my arms are really long. You think that would help at all? Maybe.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah, maybe it'll just be I'll accidentally punch him in the face while we're playing arms, right? And I'm like, oh, whoops. But then I guess he would just start unarmed combating my ass, and then I would die. So
The man is a beast.
maybe I'll hold off.
You would die.
I guess I'll just hold off on the president thing for a little bit.
Okay, we'll table it. You can come back to it later.
Okay. Well, cool. Samuel Reha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
This is a blast and a half. I'm so glad we finally got around to it, and thank you for enlightening us to the world of Kerbal Space Program. If you want to support our boy Samuel Reha, you can give him some support on his new game Dictatorship. That's dictatorshipgame.com. Also on Facebook, like you mentioned, and Twitter. You can follow him for updates there. I'm sure there's links to both of those on the website as well. If you want to try out that demo, you can do that. And Snapshot is also available on itch.io if you want to check that out. Anything else you want to add on there, Samuel?
Man, you plugged me better than I could have plugged myself. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I had a great time.
All right. Well, as always, if anyone has any comments, questions, feedback, anything like that, you can always send an email over to thesplatshow@gmail.com, and we will read it on air. You can send us just a picture of a dog, or you're saved from Animal Crossing 64, which I still don't believe. But anyways, yeah. So
not DD. My bad.
Not DD. We
I'm gonna
love.
send you guys pictures of dogs.
Please do, and we'll pretend it's
Yes.
someone else. But
Yep.
no, that'd be great.
Yep.
So yeah, viewer mail always welcome. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of the Splatt Show. You can follow us on Twitter at the Splatt Show, and we're also on Facebook. No, we're not on Facebook. Just kidding. We're on Google Play and iTunes, so you can subscribe to our podcast there. Or we have a YouTube channel where you can check out the video versions of the show. So yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.